What's up with glass blocks? Or glass bricks, as some people call them. Growing up, glass blocks always felt like this relic of the 80s, a clue as to what was going on before I showed up. I'd see them collecting dirt in dentist offices, hair salons, lawyer offices, all the stops in a rundown strip mall. By now, most of these places have been refurbished, but sometimes I still stumble across these glass blocks, like this Chipotle in Atlanta. This one was built in 2004, and it looks like it hasn't been touched since. I also got sick eating here, so don't come here. These days, glass blocks are seen as pretty tacky. Okay, very tacky, but to me, I always thought they looked mesmerizing. I'm working on some art direction for my game Gangstock, and I thought glass would be a perfect pair for my brutalist concrete scenes. Usually, brutalism is paired with sleek panels of glass, like this building, which is a brutalist Kroger, and a BlackRock office. It's a combination Kroger-BlackRock office. It's the murder Kroger. However, in games, giant glass panels are hard to see, so instead I thought a giant glass block wall would help more with level design. It would clue the player in that there's something behind this wall while still obscuring what's behind it. That seems to be the main use case of glass blocks IRL as well by architects, since they're used a lot in bathrooms. It gives you privacy while still letting light in. So how do I make a glass block in Unreal? I went to a hardware store and tried to find one, but they don't sell them anymore. A lot of security cams though. So I had to order this one off of eBay. Unfortunately, this is a used glass brick, so it's a little green, and there's also some silicone caulk residue on the side, and not the fun kind of silicone caulk. I managed to get most of it off by using rubbing alcohol and shaving it, and then putting a screwdriver, like a flathead screwdriver to it. And I got most of it off, so you might see some in some of the shots that I have. But this should be a good frame of reference for the game. There's a lot of interesting refractions going on. The bricks are made by pressing glass into a mold on each side. The center part can be stamped with any pattern. This one is a wavy pattern. The sides are then heated up and pressed together. When it cools, it creates a partial vacuum in the center, which makes it a good insulator. While researching glass blocks, I came across something interesting. Glass blocks are not a product of the 80s. They were popular at the time because of a nostalgic wave of Art Deco. Glass blocks first came into the scene with 30s futurism. An early example is the Maison de Verre in France, built in the early 30s. These ones have a cool circle design. At the Chicago World's Fair, the Owens, Illinois Glass Company wanted to introduce glass blocks to the mass market, so they showed off their new building material with a building made of glass blocks. These black and white photos don't do it justice though. From postcards, you can see that the glass blocks were actually a spectrum of colors. Glass blocks were also featured in the New York World's Fair. You can even buy some memorabilia glass blocks. These materials became popular in commercial buildings since during the day they can let in lots of light, and at night the buildings would glow with internal light. It was a good advertisement. The blocks were pretty good insulators and came in a range of patterns and styles. They were a staple in the Art Deco style, particularly streamlined modern, which is very sleek and aerodynamic. It's peak retrofuturism. Hey, wait a minute, how did Rockstar create these glass blocks in their 2011 game LA Noire? Glass refraction has been around in games for a while. It's a pretty simple shader trick. First, you render the scene, and then use a normal map on a glass texture to shift around the pixels behind it. This was easy enough to recreate in Unreal. I just had to create a transparent glass material, and then add a wavy normal map, and boom, refracting glass. Now I could just plug in whatever normal map I want, like this cool stripy one, and it will refract the glass in different ways. To make it look more like bricks, I added another normal map that looks like a brick. It turns out combining normal maps isn't that simple, but once I got that working right, the results show a pretty good impression of a wall of glass bricks. This is just a flat plane, it's all just a shader trick. Unfortunately, there is one very annoying artifact that shows up when you do this. Smear. This is something you see in reflections as well. Since we're only using the information that's rendering on the screen and moving pixels around, if there's something in front of the glass, we don't know what's behind it, and we just smear that object's pixels onto the glass, which looks pretty bad. You can see it here in Portal when I move this radio in front of the glass. This is probably the reason why in Portal it has all these windows up above the ground floor to prevent the player from seeing this artifact. It also makes these test rooms feel more oppressive, so that could have also been part of it. Interestingly, I couldn't find this artifact in LA Noire. Maybe there's some slight ghosting around the edges of the player, but it's really hard to tell. Rockstar might have done some multiple rendering passes to prevent this artifact from showing up, or had some other technology. Now there is a new way of preventing this artifact from showing. Let's just brute force simulating all the refractions using ray tracing. Ray tracing doesn't use normal maps to shift the pixels, but actually shift the rays that are being cast, so no more smearing. In Unreal, once I enable ray tracing on translucent materials, the glass blocks become even more realistic. Of course, depending on the player hardware, we could just default back to screen space refraction if they don't have ray tracing, and that still does the job, but I really like how ray tracing looks, so I'm not going to let smearing dictate my art direction for the game. I'm going to use a lot of glass and reflective things everywhere. I mean, I did use a lot of reflective things in Kit and Burst anyway, and just tanked the screen space reflections. The glass block material is now looking pretty close to the real thing. However, this is still just a flat cube. Using an actual model of a glass block creates an even more realistic impression, because it's actually refracting everything correctly. I guess with Unreal's nanite system, I should actually just be modeling full 3D blocks everywhere, and just let the engine handle it, but I don't know, I think we're going overboard now. This glass block material that I made can be slapped onto any wall or object and create a wall of glass blocks wherever we want. Here's a glass block banana, a glass block face, a glass block glass block. I also found some really cool inspiration for brutalism and glass blocks combined together, like this train station in Germany or this optical glass house in Japan. I really loved the balance of concrete, glass, and nature with this. I tried recreating the courtyard in Unreal for practice. I've seen a lot of love for glass blocks on social media and DIY projects using the material again, so maybe glass blocks are having a bit of a comeback, or maybe the algorithm has just figured out my current obsession again. We're also seeing the comeback of glass in UI as well with Apple's new liquid glass user interface, which I'm pretty sure is doing that same screen space pixel smearing trick, although it has some neat color shifting as well, so it might be more complex than that. I've seen mixed reactions to this, but honestly, I really love it. I'm just glad we're getting away from flat design finally. You see that in architecture too. Every new building are those wooden buildings with the flat color sidings, which I think just looks so depressing. At least Brutalism had some utopian optimism behind it. These contemporary buildings are just optimizing the cheapest way to build things. I'm not an architect, but I still think there's a lot of potential use cases for glass bricks. Maybe not this square, very 80s design, but you can make all sorts of design, shapes, colors, patterns. I think there's a lot of potential still here.